the living organisms and their surroundings. Learning about organisms and the surroundings where they live. Children, what do we plan during our vacations? We plan for a trip to hill stations. We visit those places with our family and enjoy the sightseeing and observe the surroundings. Last summer, Snigdha and Sachin, along with their family, went on a long tour and they observed a lot of things around them. Snigdha and Sachin went on a vacation to many places of interest. One such trip took them to River Ganga in Rishikesh. They climbed the mountains of the Himalayas, where it was very cold. They saw many kind of trees on these mountains: oaks, pines, and deodars, very different from ones near their home on the plains. In yet another trip, they traveled to Rajasthan and moved on camels through the hot desert. They collected different kinds of cactus plants from this trip. Finally, they went on a trip to Puri and visited the sea beach, dotted with casuarina trees. While recollecting all the fun that they had on these trips, a thought struck them. All these places were so different from one another. Some were cold, some were very hot and dry, and some places were humid. And yet, all of them had many organisms, living creatures of various kinds. They tried to think of a place on earth where there may not be any living creatures. Sachin thought of places near his home. Inside the house, he tried the cupboards. He had thought that there may not be any living organisms here, but he found one tiny spider in the cupboard. Outside the home too, there did not seem to be any place he could think of that did not have living creatures of some kind or the other. Snigdha started thinking and reading about far away places. She read that people have even found tiny living organisms in the openings of volcanoes. Organisms and the surroundings where they live. Another thought that occurred to Snigdha and Sachin was about the kinds of living organisms that were present in different locations that they had visited. The deserts had camels. The mountains had goats and yak. Puri had some other creatures, crabs on the beach, and such a variety of fish being caught by the fishermen at the sea. Habitat and adaptation. In the sea, plants and animals are surrounded by saline, salty water. Most of them use the air dissolved in water. There is very little water available in the desert. It is very hot in the daytime and very cold at the night in the desert. The animals and plants of the desert live on the desert soil and breathe air from the surroundings. Let us take a look at two very different kinds of organisms from the desert and the sea. A camel and a fish. The body structure of a camel helps to survive in a desert condition. Camels have long legs which help to keep their bodies away from the heat of the sand. They excrete small amount of urine. Their dung is dry and they do not sweat. Since camels lose very little water from their bodies, they can live for many days without water. Let us look at different kinds of fish. There are so many kinds of fish. They have streamlined shaped body that helps them move inside the water. Fish have slippery scales on their bodies. These scales protect the fish and also help in easy movement through water. Fish have flat fins and tails that help them to change directions and keep their body balanced in water. Gills present in the fish help them to use oxygen dissolved in water. We see that the features of a fish help it to live inside water. The presence of specific features or certain habits which enable a plant or an animal to live in its surroundings is called adaptation. Different animals are adapted to their surroundings in different ways. The surroundings where organisms live is called a habitat. The organisms depend for their food, water, air, shelter, and other needs on their habitat. Habitat means a dwelling place, a home. Several kinds of plants and animals may share the same habitat. The plants and animals that live on the land are said to live in terrestrial habitat. Some examples of terrestrial habitats are forests, grasslands, deserts, coastal, and mountain regions. On the other hand, the habitats of plants and animals that live in water are called aquatic habitats. Ponds, lakes, rivers, and oceans are some examples of aquatic habitats. The living things, such as plants and animals, in a habitat are its biotic components. Various non-living things, such as rocks, soil, air, and water in the habitat constitute its abiotic components. Sunlight and heat also form abiotic components of a habitat. There are some changes that can happen in an organism over a short period of time to help them adjust to some changes in their surroundings. For instance, if we live in the plains and suddenly go to a high mountain region, we may experience difficulty in breathing and doing physical exercise for some days. We need to breathe faster when we are on a high mountain. After some days, our body adjusts to the changed condition on the high mountain. Such small changes that take place in the body of a single organism over short periods to overcome small problems due to changes in the surroundings are called acclimatization. These changes are different from the adaptations that take place over thousands of years. We know that some plants grow from seeds. We made sprouts from moong, matki, and chana seeds. When the seeds turned into a sprout, it germinated. This is the beginning of a new plant from the seed. Activity. Let us collect some dry moong seeds. Keep a small heap of seeds aside and soak the rest in water for a day. Divide the soaked seeds into 4 parts. Keep a part completely submerged in water for 3 to 4 days. Do not disturb the dry seeds and those submerged in water. Keep B part of the soaked seeds in a sunny room and C part in a completely dark region like a cupboard that does not allow any light to come in. Keep the D part in very cold surroundings, say in a refrigerator. Set these 3 parts to germinate by rinsing them and draining the water every day. What do you notice after a few days? We observe that the seeds in all the 5 parts do not germinate equally. We find A part has increased in size. B part, the seeds have sprouted. C part and D part, there was no germination. This shows that abiotic factors like air, water, light, and heat are very important for growth of the plants. We find that organisms exist in very cold as well as very hot climates and surroundings. How do they manage to survive? Adaptation does not take place in a short time. Over thousands of years, abiotic factors of a region change. Those animals which cannot adapt to these changes die out, and only the adapted ones survive. Summary: the surroundings where plants and animals live is called their habitat. Several kinds of plants and animals may share the same habitat. The presence of specific features and habits which enable a plant or an animal to live in a particular habitat is called adaptation. Hey, that is all in this subtopic, students. Keep learning. Learning is fun.